Danielle Auroi, our former colleague from the European Parliament and now chair of the French National Assembly of the European Affairs Committee.
Merci beaucoup, Heidi Hautala.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to find myself back here in this hemicycle. I see there are a few people I know around here in the room. So there's a little bit of a change. I would like to thank Heidi for this introduction, which has set the base for this discussion. Why have we launched ourselves into this adventure in France with the law, which today has been voted thanks to the obstinacy of certain parliamentarians who, including Dominique Potier, who will be speaking later. We followed this logic because at the European level there's always already the extra financial reporting which was imposed on the multinationals, which is today the social responsibility of the multinationals in relation to their subsidiaries and their subcontractors. In fact, these are companies that explain that for themselves directly they still have codes of conduct which are magnificent for their own employees, but when it's our branches, subsidiaries and subcontractors, it's not the same thing. We were based on something that wasn't extraordinary or unusual because they were the guiding principles of the OECD, which are based on this, which we used as a reference because we realized that the desire of the multinationals wasn't enough. For two examples, one which was for us unfortunately the basis of our arguments, it's the drama of Rana Plaza in 2016 where about 1,200 people, especially women, died under when their factory collapsed, and the big companies in textile companies, because it's mainly textile, refused for a long time to compensate the victims or their families, saying that it wasn't their fault, it was a subcontractor who or some branch of a branch of a branch who was responsible and not them. So every time we said we had to manage through the law because you can see that goodwill isn't enough, they said that, oh, no, their goodwill was perfect and that since 2013 there were other dramas, there were other scandals. The last one you might remember is to discover that in Turkey, a Mango or other clothes companies, the same type of companies, they're quite ready to accept that Syrian refugee children work in Turkish textile factories, and you can see that if there's no law there, then obviously this is what takes place. So the National Assembly, thanks to the NGOs, motivation of people who worked with us, we together proposed a law on the duty of care, and Dominique Potier, who was the rapporteur, it took us nearly 2 years of procedure for this to be promulgated, after getting over the last obstacle, approval by the Constitutional Council. Now, of course, if the European Union doesn't talk about this, then France on its own isn't enough. So as President of the National Assembly European Council, I've done what's possible. That's to say, to propose to other national parliaments and the European Parliament what we call a green card. That's to say, an initiative, a legislative initiative coming from parliaments, and which is sent to the Commission. This initiative, which includes what we voted in France, was supported by 10 other assemblies, the chambers, houses, parliamentary houses in the European Union, including the British. It's a pity they're coming out of the Union because that was a very precious help. But so what we have to note is that in its response in last December, the Commission, first of all, was through the Internal Market Commissioner. Well, that subject is not really an internal market for the European Union. It's, on the contrary, it's an external subject. These are people who are working outside the European Union. So the response was, well, useless. And then it was explained to us, yes, but in this sort of this guideline, there was a bit of that, and one other guideline, there was a bit of that. So when you look at things in reality, there's not really a lot to see. So this afternoon, in fact, I'm going to be meeting the Vice President, Frank Timmermans, to tell him that this approach is not sufficient. Well, I won't say it's unworthy, I could even say it's unworthy, because really to treat human rights and environment and the environment, so we just talked about, we just mentioned palm oil, now we're going to be talking about minerals and conflicts, to deal with that as though it was just some little thing that you could put somewhere else which doesn't have any consequence once, well, there's a few people dead, it doesn't really matter, they're not Europeans, and that's actually absolutely quite scandalous. So I think that we all together, I think we should work on that subject. It's a fundamental subject. Companies will always be able to say with a hand on heart that they're wonderful, but we will see that if there isn't a minimum level of legal laws, then a lot of them on the European level, they're going to not respect the human rights. So, and that's why it's important, and I'd like us to do that within the EP, that the EP talks about refugees, and there should be a guideline. We should deal with this, and that we should have a directive coming out tomorrow, because we should all apply pressure to the Commission so that they can do a first draft of this. Well, I'm not going to go on anymore, but thank you very much for listening to me.